Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Very excited for this conversation today. I'm Ryan. I'll be your host in this Founders Series. I'm joined by two wonderful gentlemen here. First of all, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And the founder of the hour, Mr. Clint Brower, from Greenfield Robotics. Clint, really happy to have you. Would love if you could introduce yourself and introduce Greenfield Robotics.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Much appreciated. Yeah, Greenfield Robotics is a company that founded about 7 years ago, and we have robots running in 6 states. And they basically were on a mission to get rid of chemicals in agriculture and allow regenerative ag to scale without chemicals. And so we're based here in Cheney, Kansas, and we're pretty excited.
That's wonderful. And so you've developed these autonomous robots over the span of this 7 years, and they do a lot of different things. Is that correct?
Yeah, for about 4 years, we've been in paid fields cutting weeds between rows, right? Things that are resistant to herbicides and helping farmers with that. Now that same robot is actually foliar feeding the crop at night or during the day, whatever the farmer wants to do. And so all the robots we're building for next year will have that dual purpose capability. And there's a lot of things coming down the pipe. So
wonderful. Now, Kevin, first reactions, you hear autonomous robots that are kind of transforming this agriculture industry, farmers resistant to change a lot of the times. What goes through your mind there?
I actually work with a lot of farmers in ag tech. This is an ag tech deal. And a lot of this work I'm doing is in Oklahoma and North Dakota. It's one of the breadbaskets of the world. And the thing about the farming community, and I'm sure Clint will agree with this, is they are the original American entrepreneur. They take tremendous risk. They go through commodity price swings every year. These are family businesses, sometimes 5 generations. They don't take BS from anybody, and they don't believe anybody until you show them it works, because they've seen everything. And so what works in ag tech, and which creates moats for companies a lot of this is happening with drones as well for ag tech, and I invest in that too. It's show me the product, and then let me talk to my neighbor who's using it, or any farmer anywhere, because farmers trust farmers. That's how it works. And once you get their trust, and once you execute for them, and once they actually see it's productive and reduces overall cost, because they're fighting every way they can for productivity enhancement in yield of their product and cutting costs for that yield. That's what they do all day, whether they're big or small or part of a syndicate or whatever. And I've seen this work. When it works and you execute and you give them the right tech support, and they start telling that to other farmers, really good shit happens.
Yeah, that's right.
So Clint, what are you hearing from the farmers you've been working with? You're collecting that feedback. What are they saying?
Yeah, well, I am a farmer. And so everything we design starts on my farm to solve a problem I have. And so we have never had a sales problem with farmers, but we're very careful. 4 years ago, we knew the robots weren't very good. And 3 years ago. And so we've been very careful what we promised, what we would do. Just to give you an example, 4 years ago, we would tell farmers, look, if we damage more than 2% of your crop with these robots running through the fields, we'll pay you. And we did. And we did that until 2 years ago. And but we paid them at 2% damage, which is actually the beginning where a spray rig damages. So we took care of them in an inordinate way to set that table, because exactly what Kevin's saying I knew is true. And it's honestly just the way to do things, is take care of your customers and take care of them from day one. And he's absolutely spot on. That's exactly the case. Farmers talk. And as long as you set the table correctly, expectations, then you have a good experience. And so that's what we've done over the years. Obviously now they work pretty darn well.
Kevin, how does that stand out to you? A company standing behind their product to work with the farmers when they know the tech is not where it needs to be in order to get to that point?
Well, I just learned that Clint was a farmer, so that's taking away 80% of the challenges of reaching out.
Yeah.
But also being transparent about damage and paying them, because basically you're getting two things. You're executing on alpha and beta testing on the product, which is very, very important. And also lets the customer know that there's a really strong backup for customer support. You want to be in the top quartile there all the time. And what I find is that once a farmer starts using a piece of technology, I mean, I'm using an example I'm a little closer to, which is scanning technology with drones, and they learn how to use it, and they put someone in the family, usually a younger member, operating the drones after they learn how to do it. They don't switch up. And the only way they switch up is you screw them one way or another. And you screw one farmer, he tells another 10. So it's sort of like, this model is so interesting. It's kind of unique that the moat is so tight when you get customer support right. It's very hard for a competitor to break in. And that's what's great about, sustaining almost subscription-free revenue or fee revenue down the road. This is a very interesting deal. There's no question about it. If it provides productivity and it does what it says, each farmer will decide, when to try it. I'm assuming, Clint, you give them trial, right? Let them give it a shot.
Yeah, so what we do with the farmer is we've never walked in and said, hey, you farmed 2,000 acres, let's run on all of that. We say, let's run on paid fields for 80 acres or 160, and every year we can take on more out of the gate. And so, yeah, we've been very cautious. In fact, we had a few farms early on said, hey, why don't you just run on all our acres? I'm like, we're not ready, we're not doing that. And so now we're much more aggressive. We know we're further along, but yeah, everything we do is paid for 4 years. And we don't believe in free trials. I've never believed in that concept. And so we're doing trials, but they are paid. And so, yeah, it's been great. And like I said, we're running a lot of fields, 10 different crops this year. So
the great thing about these Start Engine sessions is I'm doing the journey along with potential investors. And I've never met, Clint before, so I'm asking the same questions every investor should ask because I am an investor. But I'm going to give him a 9.24 out of 10 so far. It's just what I've heard.
That's good.
This is exactly the
I'll
way you have. This is how ag tech is done. He's 100% on the money. Because I see a lot of ag tech deals, engineers coming out of MIT with an idea for farmers, and I say, man, good luck with that, because you're years away from adoption, because they don't like the big city slickers from Boston. They just don't, and they don't give a damn. And you can tell them anything you want till you got a farmer using it, you got nothing.
That's right. Yep. No, it's look, I think this has been one of our strengths is that, I have the tech background, but I grew up farming and I farm now, and I've raised 100 plus different types of crops, indoor, outdoor, and all these types of deals. And so this is our advantage. Appreciate that. 9.24. I'll ask you sometime what kept it out of 10.
Well, I never give a 10. There's always room for improvement. That's how it works.
That is true.
Because you're in the Shark Tank here, buddy. The ag tank.
Well, speaking of improvement, Clint, kind of where are you thinking of going from? You've had a lot of success so far. What's next?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first thing is perfect the product we have and expand on it, right? So obviously, you don't want to distract from what you already have operating, working. So grow. So we're looking to add 2 more states before the end of the year and have winter operations for the first time. And so if that works out, we'll do that and expand again next year, and increase the fleet size substantially next year. This year was a big jump for us. We took the robots, we dropped them off in all these different locations, and we let the farmers maintain them. We used to help maintain them. So this year the farmers maintained them, deployed them, swapped batteries, all these things. And we watched them from here, literally from this room. You could see it going on behind me. Next year, the farmers are going to watch it. And so it's true, letting them do what they're doing. And like Kevin mentioned before, that's exactly right. Let the intern or the young person on their family run these robots as a parallel operation. That's what we recommend. And so keep growing it that way. Beyond that, look, you've got the things as an entrepreneur you're doing, and I have my nights and weekend project. That's the next thing. And we've had a bot we've been developing for 4 years. We'll let out in the wild at some point that gets rid of the chemicals before you plant, and actually will plant the crop at some point. And so we've been testing that. And so when we get to that point, end to end, we're eliminating tractors. And so we're a ways from that, just to be clear. And but certainly there's the things you're doing today, and then me as the sort of innovation guy are looking at those things as well. So that's where we're going.
I love
Now
it.
you eliminate tractors. That's a quantum in a cost reduction, including the capex required to purchase these and lease them. They're damned expensive, and the prices are only going one way up. And so, you know, it's not like you keep the family tractor around from the 1905 kind of thing. These things are damn expensive, and the idea of replacing them with a bot, that I don't know when that can happen, but if you're the guy that does that, that's a huge.
Oh, we might have just lost Kevin. I'm
Well,
sure.
I'll finish that thought in terms of that. Look, it won't be overnight, any of these things, but when we talk to farmers, I show two charts when we talk to farmers, per Kevin's point. One is the price of farm equipment going like this, and the other is price of television. I've been in tech for a better part of my 25-year career, and I'm used to driving costs down. And it doesn't make any sense to me that the costs are going like this on equipment. And so we certainly have that sensibility. Now, that's a byproduct of wanting to get rid of chemicals and coming up with new methods of doing things. But we're certainly on that track.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think speaking of the cost savings, you know, I know we have a question that an investor wrote in is, what are the cost saving implications, you know, with Greenfield versus kind of a more traditional application?
Yep. If you look at, if we talk about organic farms, we're well below what it costs already to maintain weeds in an organic field. In fact, you can't do it very well at all today without cultivation, which has serious, serious drawbacks. On a conventional setting, which is what we set up on originally, because I said if we can compete on a conventional, we can compete on anything. Mm-hmm. And so on a conventional, a farmer is going to spend at least $35 spraying chemicals each time they go out there with a spray rig. Somewhere 25 to 50, let's call it. Could be way more after they planted the crop. And so we're at or below that. We're actually below that per pass. It's really how much usage you get. And we're looking to decline that substantially over the coming years. Just like any other technology, it's a function of how often you use it, how fast it can move, what you can get done, productivity, and how well you use it as a user. And so that's the chart we're moving down. And unlike our growth, we're moving it down and to the right, and the growth is up to the right. And so that's what we're doing on the cost curve over time. So yield difference, I don't have any scientific proof, but there are a lot of farmers who talk in my ear from time to time, including one yesterday, talking to me about yield ding from herbicides. Even when you have the genetically modified crop that you spray the chemicals on, there is a yield ding. I don't know that anybody's captured it scientifically, but it's kind of common knowledge among farmers, but we don't have that problem. So we're going between the rows and not impacting anything. And so then the last piece I'll say is soil health. There's a long-term consequence of even using herbicides. And let me just give you an example. Glyphosate is actually a registered antibiotic. And so when that goes into the soil at that point, you're repressing the soil health, just like if you took antibiotics never ending into your own system and digestive health, you would repress the health of the rest of your system over time, your immune system. Soil's very similar. And so we don't do any of those things with what we do. And so we're on the other side of that coin. So the yield difference over time will accumulate, in my opinion.
Amazing. Now, Kevin, we're searching for that last, 3/4 of the rating out of 10. You've heard kind of the plans for the future where Clint's growing and kind of seeing, hey, how can we use these robots in more and more applications? It's saving money. What other questions, come to your mind as you're thinking of, what could be room for improvement to get that, deal score, quote unquote, as high as possible?
So what I've learned with ag tech, now having been involved for many years, is that you want to focus on the first execution and get that nailed. And the reason that matters is that once the farm enterprise is standardized on it, in this case, this first robot, and it's working and it's proven and it's gone through multiple seasons, the propensity to adopt new technology from the same enterprise, same company, is extremely high. Nobody wants to switch. And so the way you got to look at it as an investor is, if Clint executes and this gets adopted by pick a number, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 farms, and they get through a couple of seasons and it works, the launch cost for the next product or service is de-risked 80%. And that's how you build a franchise, because ultimately as an investor, you want this thing to become a known brand within farm enterprise and, you know, winner in ag tech. But the real value is that you get to launch new products, new services, new incremental revenue sources at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the risk. You still have to develop it, but your go-to-market risk is cut by 80%. And that's where the value of the company should be materially higher, even though they haven't launched the next product yet. Proof of concept is the whole deal. So that's what's interesting about this deal. You're getting in when it's already being used, but once it gets standardized for, you know, some portion of the market, and I don't know what Clint's target is on that, maybe a few hundred farms, then it's Katie bar the doors. Every 2 years, you want to launch a new platform, and you don't stop until you drop dead. That's how it works, and then you become a major player, and market cap is huge, and, you know, early investors do very, very well in scenarios like that.
Now, Clint, you speaking of you know, as everything's Kevin's mentioning of kind of finding that demand. Tell us about the demand you've had so far. I think it's some pretty impressive facts.
Yeah, and I don't know about that drop dead part, but the rest of it sounded good. Yeah, so look, we've all of our demands come inbound. And so there's never been a sales thing. And again, to what Kevin keeps saying, I 100% am on board, is we're very careful about who we grow with here in these early stages to get it right and then expand with the farms we work with. And that's really important. If you get it right, you establish trust. That's any business, but in farming, it's even more important with their margins and all the variables they can't control. I mean, farming is ridiculous. The biggest variable of all is weather, and you can't control it all. There's not a lot of businesses that have that big of impact because of weather. And so we really spend the time with that. So yes, there is great demand coming in. Everything's inbound, and we feel good about that. That really has never been a concern for us. You know, not to say that couldn't become a concern, but I don't see it from where I sit. It solves a lot of problems for me.
Well, the other side of it,
let me add a stat about all startups, because Clint just addressed something really important: customer acquisition cost. His is basically zero. It's word of mouth. 80% of startups fail for one singular reason within 36 months. They're never able to get their customer acquisition costs below the lifetime value. Basically, what that means is they go bankrupt advertising. And I see it every day. This is not the case here. It's the magic of word of mouth, which you talked right off the top at the get-go. That's huge. If you don't have to acquire a customer and they're coming to you, think about the advantage you have versus the other 8 out of 10 businesses that can never get that done, ever. And that's kind of unique to farming and ag tech, but this deal is the one you're looking at here, and they've solved for that. So it's another huge risk reduction.
I've got the sunburns and the checks in the past to vouch for that. So being out there and working through with farmers. So I mean, look, it's the most important thing we do. We value consumers, one, making sure down the road that people can trust food, and farmers too. And then after that, we don't care. Those are our two things. That's it.
How do you keep up with all the demand? Because I think you're sold out like a year in advance. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had reservations for the 100 bots we're going to make for next year in the late spring, early summer already. So look, we're going to grow at a pace that's sustainable and take care of the customers. We do believe there's a level of moat with the difficulty of what we've achieved. I mean, guys, we have a spinning blades running through a field at up to 3.5 miles an hour. That is really hard, and up to 13 plus machines doing it in parallel with no one on site. These are not easy things to do. And so we're more concerned about continuing to innovate, but take care of the farmers. And so we will grow, but I'm not going to grow and implode. And all of us have a lot of startup experience. My co-founder was early in SaaS, one of the first SaaS co-founders. And we've all had experience in startups, and we've all had some level of exits. And so we really want to make sure it's right and grow. So If demand outstrips supply, then we'll address that problem, but we want to make sure that we grow at a pace and not let someone completely down.
Methodical growth is, Kevin, does that stand out to you? You see a lot of startups that come across, I'm sure they have all hockey stick distributions on their charts. When you see someone like Clint that is being measured about it and grown in the right way, how does that stand
Well,
out?
let me, we're not going to grow slow.
Yeah.
But there's slow and there's reckless. And I've seen both through startups I've been part of. So
Actually, it used to be just 3 years ago that the only thing VCs cared about was growth. They didn't care about CapEx, and they didn't care about profits because money was cheap. It was under 3%. That's not the case anymore. And so methodical growth, looking at CapEx and how much capital is being tied up, matters a lot. So it's a change in how companies are valued. But I think more valuable than that is the virtually zero customer acquisition cost. Imagine you can control your growth and you don't have to buy the incremental customer. They're there for you. So that's today, that's a pretty coveted model. That's pretty good. That's very, very good.
Yep.
Kevin, what do you see as possible risks here that Clint should address for the investors in the audience?
Execution risk. Does Clint fuck it up? It happens. Shitty managers blow up businesses all the time, but it sounds like this guy's got a pretty good plan. That's usually your biggest risk once you have customer adoption. I don't think that risk is too high here. I mean, it sounds like, if you ask what the risk is, it's once you have adoption and once you have proof of concept, usually what takes you out of the race is lack of executional skills. And so you have to build the team, you have to get the right CFO in place, and customer support people and all of that stuff. But that's where the risk is now in this deal. It's not proof of concept. So you should pay a lot less for a company that hasn't proved adoption yet, and a lot more for one that has. It's that simple.
Clint, how are you kind of, to Kevin's point of having a great team? I know you have a team around you. How do you maintain that as you grow, certainly in headcount? How do you maintain that quality that's necessary to execute?
Yeah. Step one is you do need to grow your headcount a little bit. I mean, AI is a helpful tool and it can expand your capabilities, but it's no replacement for some amount of headcount. So that's one. And two is sort of like I've laid out, growing at the right pace and understanding what your capability is. So, going into 6 states, I was nervous, guys, very nervous, and that drove us. We were nervous, but it's gone pretty well. And so now we're ready to expand more and put more power in the hands of farmers. And so it's trying to get that expansion curve correct and improving the product consistently every year so it does more. So the farmer in this case gets more bang for the buck. And so that's really where we're focused. And that's what we can do, is just not be overly cautious, but be very careful what we're doing.
Love it. And now, Clint, Kevin's also mentioned that kind of in the also ag tech sector, there's a lot. Drones are kind of a new thing. I think their drones are more applying kind of the chemicals from the air, and obviously Greenfield Robotics is taking a different approach. Do they work in tandem? Is it one or the other? Have you seen that from farmers that you've been selling to that are kind of like, oh, I'm more interested in this drone side versus on the ground?
Yeah. So when we talk to farmers, I don't know a single farmer that uses chemicals that wants to use chemicals. Not one. I just want to be clear on that. And so, but they're also using drones. And I was just watching drones fly around everywhere in Kansas yesterday at an event. And in fact, we use drones for some of what we do as well. And we will increase that capability. And we're actually getting ready to test in North Dakota next year. And so that is, I don't see a huge difference. Over time, we certainly will use them to understand what's going on in a field. We can do that much faster than driving through. But then, you got to have something, do something on the ground if you want to get rid of chemicals. And so that's us.
Clint, are you going to open an office in North Dakota, in Fargo or Jamestown or something? What's going to happen?
Actually, our manufacturing is being done in Fargo this winter.
Okay, well, look, you need to give me a call because I manage the Treasury Fund for Ag Tech for the state of North Dakota. And, this would fall under our mandate. We're very wired in with the governor and the senators and everything else. So if you're coming to town, I got to introduce you to the team that manages all of that. We're investors in a lot of ag tech in North Dakota.
That sounds great, but let's do that before the winter.
Yeah. No, it's a joke, but I got involved with North Dakota because of a Shark Tank deal called PRX Performance, which manufactured gym equipment. And we went and shot up there in February. It was one of the most successful deals in Shark Tank history years and years ago. And we went ice fishing. It was so cold that the cameras froze. Although we had a hell of a good, like those guys have a good time ice fishing. You need to get carried off in a sled because you're not walking out of there. Like it's really, it's a hell of a party. But it was really interesting what's developed. And so if you're doing anything there, I'm not saying you have to, but I would highly recommend the support we could give you as an investor.
That sounds great. Yeah, listen, we are so impressed with Fargo and ag tech. I think Fargo is really a leading edge on that. And that was something I didn't realize a few years ago. And then I met someone that taught me differently, and we got involved there. And it's pretty impressive what they have going in Fargo and in North Dakota in general.
Ryan, if you could connect Clint and I, and then send me the deck, and I'll introduce you to the North Dakota team. Sounds very interesting, and I just add to the excitement about this investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Would love to do that, and I know Clint would love it too. We are kind of coming up on the end of time. Kevin, I just want to ask you, a final question here. You've heard the 30-minute pitch of Greenfield. What stands out to you in 10 words, short kind of spark notes?
0 customer acquisition cost. That's it. That's the whole deal. That's a big deal. It's very hard to find, extremely hard to find, particularly in ag tech, almost impossible to find, because farmers are getting pitched stuff all day and they don't adopt much of it. And this one has some adoption, so it's a big deal. That's really what this deal's about.
I love it. I love it. Clint, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with Kevin, with the investors that are tuning in about Greenfield and about this opportunity?
Look, I'm not going ice fishing, but beyond that, I appreciate this, guys, and giving us a chance, a platform to talk about what we're doing. I mean, look, this is the most committed team I've ever been part of, and I've been part of multiple startups, and this team just has no quit, and we just keep getting better. And we're very excited about it, and crowdfunding matters a lot to us, and it's very simple. Everyone eats food. And so this affects everyone, what we're doing. And so this is very exciting to us. It's what we love about crowdfunding, and just appreciate the time to talk about this, and Kevin, your time, and Ryan for hosting. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. Kevin, Clint, thank you very much. Everyone tuning in, thank you for joining another Founders Series event with Start Engine. You can find out more about Greenfield Robotics on their campaign page on startengine.com. Clint, Kevin, thank you very much. I hope you both have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye.